Hey, how you doing? Let's have a conversation about how the flow of information impacts an organization's operations. Please join me on this journey of knowledge dissemination. Enjoy the video. If you don't know where you are going, any road will take you there. That quote is from Lewis Carroll, an English author. Likewise, if you do not have a plan for managing intellectual capital, knowledge management initiatives are sure to fail. Logically, an effective solution is to develop a knowledge strategy. After a knowledge audit has been completed, see KM Discussion 5, the next step is to identify a path forward. While important for identifying lessons learned, the knowledge audit is limited because it focuses on what has already happened. And unless you want to quickly become irrelevant, you likely do not want to remain stuck in the past. In contrast to an audit, a knowledge strategy is about the future. It includes things such as vision, scope, business drivers, value proposition, critical knowledge areas, change, and stakeholder management. But before a strategy can be crafted, it is probably a great idea to understand the environment in which your organization operates. Two frameworks can be very useful here: SWAT and 5 forces. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Its purpose is to evaluate a company's competitive position by reviewing internal strengths and weaknesses and external opportunities and threats factors. There is some debate about the origins of SWOT. The leading belief is that Albert S. Humphrey, a business management consultant, created it while working on a project for the Stanford Research Institute to understand what went wrong with corporate planning. 5 forces is an economics-based model that analyzes the competition of a business and the attractiveness of an industry in terms of its profitability. Michael Porter, a professor at Harvard Business School, created the 5 forces analysis. SWOT and 5 forces analyses can be used to think about the components of a knowledge strategy. After all, why have a plan for information governance if the return on investment worsens an organization's competitive positioning? Even if there is a legal mandate or regulation that compels the collection of certain data, a plan that directly addresses how that knowledge is captured, stored, and retrieved is still valuable. Let's examine further using my own mashup of SWOT and 5 forces. Of course, none of what I'm about to review is infallible. You might have your own approach for thinking about these components, and that is totally fine. This table shows 3 columns representing the various components of a KM strategy, along with some SWOT analyses and 5 forces components. Let's begin with the first row, vision. When looking at a SWOT analysis, perhaps the threats component might be useful. Could market disruptions make the vision irrelevant or less valuable? When thinking about 5 forces, perhaps something like rivalry might be useful here. Is the vision sufficient to motivate workers to maintain a competitive advantage? Let's move on to the second row, scope. The strengths portion of a SWOT analysis might be insightful here. Does the organization have the resources and skills to implement the strategy? Rivalry is also a useful thing to look at here. Is the scope ambitious enough? Third row, business drivers. When looking at a SWOT analysis, thinking about the strengths might be useful. Does the organization provide goods or services in a manner where the economies of scale are favorable? For Michael Porter's 2 components could be useful. Buyer bargaining power. Do customers have high or low switching cost? The other side of that is the supplier bargaining power. Can the organization maintain a cost-effective supply chain? Let's go on to value proposition. Opportunity for the SWOT analysis. Is there something in the future that the organization could prepare for in advance? For Michael Porter's, substitutes. Is the entire industry missing the mark? And if so, again, that opportunity might be just right for your organization to take advantage of. Critical knowledge areas. The strengths part of SWOT analysis could be useful. Consider legally protected intellectual property like trademarks and copyrights, trade secrets. When thinking about Michael Porter's, the threat of new entrants could be informative. Perhaps there are barriers to acquire the needed know-how. Think about certifications, licenses, and other required skills. Perhaps there is regulated know-how, such as with doctors, lawyers, engineers, and certain financial professionals. And finally, let's consider change in stakeholder management. Weaknesses of an organization might be insightful here. Is there an aversion to new processes and technologies? Michael Porter's 5 forces could be useful when thinking about rivalries. Is the industry itself slow to change? Could the failure of competitors to adapt be exploited? To be sure, there are numerous tools and frameworks that can be used to develop a knowledge strategy. There is not necessarily a right or wrong approach because many paths can lead to the same destination. The main takeaway is that roadmaps are highly beneficial to any knowledge strategy. And don't be discouraged. Every journey begins with the first step. Thank you for watching. I encourage you to provide feedback and participate in this conversation. Comment, subscribe, like, visit my website. Let me know what you think. I love to hear other perspectives because knowledge is for everyone.